Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Like, am I audible enough?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can.
I.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I was not recording before now, so start recording. So I mentioned that what typography is an art, right? And it involves you arranging letters and text in a way that makes the copy legible, clear, and virtually appealing to the reader. Now, while creating a website, right, you should know that you are not creating a website for yourself. It's not something that you are the only one that will interact with the website, right? You are building for the users or your target audience, right? Your website must serve a purpose. Now, typography helps your website to give it that purpose, right? Because now you have things like the about section, you have like your hero section on your website. You also have different sections, right? You have the footer and the likes, right? So, and most of all these sections are filled with what textual content. That's they are filled with what copy. Anytime I'm using the word copy, I'm using the word textual content. You should know that I'm relating to what to maybe a text, right? So all this carries what textual content or copies. And if your typography is not nice, the users can't read them. Now you must make sure that what while designing or creating a website, you must make sure that your typography is amazing. Now, I said typography involves the font style, appearance, and structure, which aims to elicit certain emotions. Now, a website, I was talking about we creating a website that involves maybe fashion or beauty, right? Now, you need to what portray to your user that this is a fashion or beauty website. That's in terms you use things like script fonts and also what sans serif fonts. We are coming to that. And I said typography is what brings the text to what to life. While giving a copy, let's say you have a content creator, she gives you or he gives you a copy for the website, and as a designer or as a web developer, you are supposed to bring that text to life, right? You're supposed to make sure that your user or the target audience understands what the website is all about now using that copy. And all this depends on what typography. Now let's dive down into it. I said that why is what typography so important? I've mentioned quite a few. I said typography is so important, it's so much more than just choosing what beautiful fonts. It's a vital component of user interface design, right? Now, I mentioned that you are not building for yourself or you are not designing for yourself. You are actually designing for a user, right? You want your website to be viewed by a lot of persons, not just in, let's say, in a particular region like Nigeria, right? The web is dynamic in the sense that a lot of persons can visit your website as long as they have your web address, right? So you should know that what type is very, very important because buttons call to action has a type, has a text, right? The text content. Links are represented with what text, and description text are also what represented with text. So everything, 80 to 90% of the whole website is dependent on what on your text and typography. Um, why is what I said? Sorry, we are done with that. Now, why is typography also what's important? Typography builds brand recognition. Now we mentioned that what typography is an act of what joining letters together, right? To make sure that it is very, very visible to your user. Now, why is it also what's important is that what typography builds brand recognition. And how does it do that? I mentioned us building a website for a beauty or a fashion brand. You should make sure that what your typography also suits that brand. Well, we have company like Google. We have let's go back to what just our Android and our Apple, right? Apple uses a font called San Francisco, right? And the default font for Android is Roboto. So it makes it to what to also what define those platforms, right? Those devices. Anytime you are viewing on an Apple product, you know that you are interacting with what with San Francisco, that's their default font. Or if you are interacting with an Android, you know that what you are viewing Roboto, right? So typography what is very, very, very important because it represents the brand. Now I see that what typography influences decision making. In terms of decision making, we're going to do all this practically. That's why I'm trying to rush and also go over this. Just have an hour and we have to keep to time. Now, typography influences what decision making. You want we have things like call to action, right? Whereby your user clicks on either a button or you make your user to perform a task. This is what is referred to as call to action. And typography is very, very important because it influences what the decision of your user. If you have a text that is not legible enough, or it's not readable, or it's not even clear to your user, how do you want them to perform that task, right? Meaning that what it influences decision making. Now I said typography holds the attention of the readers. We have different websites like Wikipedia, we have like Google, we have platforms like WhatsApp, right? Now, all these platforms are accessible because of the type. Now, imagine you are chatting with someone on your WhatsApp and you are using a script font, right? Some persons do that, but it's just for their own preference, right? But most times, most people use what sans serif font for that because it's more legible on your screen or on your device and it serves its purpose. So it influences what it holds the attention of what of the readers. If a reader can't view your text, if your text is too clustered, the user won't be able to understand the topic you are trying to portray, right? Very, very important. You have to know this. You are building what for the user. I'm a product designer, I'm a user experience designer, I'm also into front-end development, right? So everything I build, I make sure I build what for the user. It's always what user first. And that's why typography is very, very important. Let's move to the next phase, and I hope I'm not going too fast. Wisdom, am I audible enough?
Sir. Very audible.
Okay, cool. Now, elements of typography, right? All these elements are very, very important, right? Elements of typography are the major principles or things that helps you to create a better type. Now we have fonts and typefaces. That's the first one. We'll be going over that very, very fast. Font and typeface, right? Most time people always what misunderstand this, or maybe they take one for the other, right? But they are two different things. Now, what is a typeface? I'm going to explain. A typeface basically refers to a set of glares or characters that share a design. In brackets, a typeface is a family of related fonts. I'm going to explain this with some samples. Now, it's some major samples of what or examples of typeface. We have Roboto, we have Helvetica, we have Open Sans, we have Montserrat, we have Georgia, we have Arial, right? For those that use Microsoft Word, use Arial, use things like Times New Roman and the likes, right? These are type of what typefaces. Now, a font refers to what the weight, the width, and the styles that constitute a typeface. Now, using area as a reference type, area have other family. That's part of its family. It has things like area bold, area italicized area, and area regular, and the likes. Right? These are what I refer to as what fonts. I want you guys to really know this so that you understand the difference between what font and typeface. While so you won't be in a position whereby you are saying a typeface and a font are the same. They are two different things. A typeface what is the major what character or the major glaze that you use, like Arial, or for me I use Tomato Grotesque as my brand font, and the likes, right? These are referred to as what? As typefaces. And for fonts, fonts are what? Referred to as the weight, the width, and the styles that constitute a typeface. Now, this is a major example and the difference. We have typeface, we have font. Typeface referred to what? Entire family of fonts of different weights. Now, a very, very good example is what? That's default font of Figma. That's Roboto. That's default font. We have Roboto. We have things like Inter. We have Georgia and others, right? Now, when it comes to fonts, fonts refers to what? Members of a typeface, often referred to as what? Members of font family or of a family. No, now for Roboto, Roboto has other what? Fonts like Roboto Thin, Roboto Extra Light, Roboto Light, Roboto Regular, and others, right? We have Extra Bold, we have Roboto Black, we have Roboto Italic, Regular, and others, right? These are referred to as what? Fonts, because they are what? The weights, the widths, and the styles that constitute what? A typeface. Now, we have different types of typefaces. I'm sure we understand the difference between typeface and fonts now, right? We have different types of typefaces, but these are the major ones. We have serif, we have sans serif, and also what? Decorative typefaces. Now, for serif, serif are always referred to as what? As ancient text. Let me use the word ancient or old typefaces, right? Because we have where I'll be giving you guys example of where serif are mostly used so that you understand the usage. Because in terms of selecting a typeface, you need to know where its origin and what it does, right? And its impact on the user. Now, for serif, we have those that read their Bible and the Quran, right? Or other olden days books. Most times they use serif fonts. And how do you differentiate a serif font from a sans serif and other fonts, right? Serif font has an extra stroke. I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but look at the text that I have under serif fonts. You'll notice that what they have an extra what stroke at the edge of what of that font. They have extra stroke. That is the difference. That's what differentiate them from other type of typefaces, right? Um, some few examples that we have Garamond, Georgia, Century, and there are a lot of what of serif fonts out there. You can check Google fonts. You can also check the font. There are a lot of what font library there that you can get different types of fonts from, right? But these are the major type of typefaces. We also have things like slab serif and the likes, right? But we won't go into that because we are all about websites. And most times when designing or creating a website, you mostly use sans serif fonts. Now, what are sans serif fonts? Sans serif fonts are referred to as what? As modern fonts because they are easy to read and they have this amazing feel, right? I most times I use sans serif fonts on virtually all my designs. I use or when I'm placing a website, I use sans serif fonts. Some major examples that we are familiar with: Montserrat. I guess Montserrat has been around for a while and it's still in the market. And I love Montserrat. I use that as my second font. And we have things like Poppins. I use that a lot also. Open Sans, Tomato Grothes. We have Helvetica, and we have Arial. But most time, when you are designing a website, don't use old fonts like Comic Sans, or you're using something like Arial for a website. Try to use modern fonts, right? Fonts that were created maybe 5 years back, like Montserrat, Poppins, Open Sans, because they really serve their purpose and they have been refined. And in terms of several yeah, in terms of several typefaces, right, they really stand out. Now, the last one I will be going over is what decorative fonts, whereby we have decorative. It's actually a type of font. You can check it. This is Sacramento. We have style script, and we have also script empty bold, right? These are the three. I did not change their name, but that's the three that we have here. So you should be able to understand and what differentiate between the different type of typefaces and when to use them. We are going over the theoretical aspect so that you guys will understand when we dive into the practical aspect. Now, we are still on what elements of typefaces, right? Now, what makes your design stand out also what goes back to the basic principles of design, right? There's a book that's 112, I guess. basic principles of design. I'll recommend you guys to check that out. I don't expect you to read everything, right? But just check that out. It's very, very good. Now, we have contrast, right? Contrast helps to convey which idea or message you want to emphasize to your reader. Um, you should understand things like hierarchy. We're also going into that, right? Contrast what helps to convey which ideas or message you want to emphasize to your readers, right? Just look at the basic sample that I used here. You understand that the heading text, that's the one that has contrast in type, stands out, and I laid more emphasis on it using a particular type of font, right? I make it more bold. I added a bold feel to it, right? And for the description text or the body text, I used a regular font, right? So you should know that when you are viewing this, what will catch your eye is the contrast in type. That's the first thing you are going to see. That's I'm laying more emphasis because that's what I want you to see. Now, in terms of having headings, right? For those that are web developers, you should know that we have H1 down to H6, right? And these are like the heading tags, right? Um, you can't style your heading and make it look like the body text, right? Users won't be able to differentiate from which is which. And in terms of design, you have to make sure that you use all these principles and lay emphasis on which elements do you want the user to see first, right? Won't dive deep into user experience, but all these principles help the user experience. Now, the next one I have here is consistency, which is very, very important, right? For a person to be very, very good at what you do, you just have to be what consistent in doing that. Keeping your typefaces consistent is key to avoiding a confusing and messy interface. When conveying information, it's essential to stick to the same font style so your readers instantly understand that you are reading and they are reading and begin to what notice a pattern. Now, this is a basic example of what of a bad way of being consistent. Now, I have heading 1, I have heading 2, and I also have what heading 3. Now, heading 1, I used a sans serif header. That's for the heading. It's a sans serif font for the heading. I also used a very good um, sans serif font also for the body. Now, still on the same website, I have heading 2, and I'm using a different font. Do you get? I'm using these Babers for those that knows font. These Babers, I'm using Babers for another for the heading 2, and I'm also using another font for the body. Now I have heading 3. I'm using a script font, and I'm also using a different script font for the body. Now imagine you bump into a website that has this type of typefaces, right, or fonts, that this is how they are being laid out. Heading 1, you have this, you will get so tired. And even taking these slides that I have as a reference point, right, you notice that there's a pattern. You always want to see the heading on the top, that's after my brand name. You always want to have that, and you have other content under it, right? It's a pattern. So you must make sure that what your type and your copy are well structured, very, very important, and they are consistent. Don't try to as some people will do, as we say, right? You want to try and reinvent the wheel, which is not possible. Imagine you are having a bicycle with a triangle tire. Just take that into, like, imagine that. How will it move? It won't move, right? But you've reinvented the wheel and it's not really working very, very fine. It can't move and it can't serve the purpose. It might be very, very beautiful and the likes, right? But it doesn't serve its purpose. Now let's go to the next one. We have white spaces. UI design of modern time from the last 3 years. We've been talking about white space. For those that are also designers, you should know that what you have to. It's also referred to as what negative space. Very, very important. White space is the space around text or graphics. Now, we call it white space or negative space, right? It's not always referred to as a white portion or a plain portion or a white portion on your website or on your design, right? But it's the space that helps you to what to portray hierarchy and the likes, right? Now look at the samples I have. I have heading one on the left, and I also have another text that is well structured. You Everyone will be having a hard time to read this, even if it's I'm using a very, very good font, but they are clustered and they are close to each other. There's no good use of typeface, of white spaces or negative space, right? Everything is just clustered. There's no space between the heading one and the body text. Now, for the next sample, that's for the next example, we have the heading one, and also you can read what is there, even if I'm using a Lorem Ipsum text, but it's possible for you to read it, right? And it's very, very legible. Very, very important in the whole while I'm creating a website, and even when structuring your design, right? Make sure that what you use a lot of white spaces. It helps the user to read your copy. Now you make sure that you don't make imagine I stretch the H1 and there's a lot of space between each text, that's each word, and users will get so tired of reading that, right? So you have to just get it just right. Very, very important. And I believe that you guys can do that. Now the next one that we have is what alignment, which I, as user experience or as product designers or as developers, right? We should make sure that what you are very good with your alignment. Now, what is alignment? Alignment is the process of unifying and composing text, graphics, and images to ensure that there is equal space, size, and distance between each element, right? Now we are just referring to text alone because we are talking about typography, right? I have some samples there. Uh, the heading one, it's aligned to the left, right, to the right, and I aligned the body text to the center. If you are viewing this, you get so tired of the whole structure of the website because it's not well aligned. Now, for heading two, the heading two is centered, and we have the description text or the body text aligned to the left. Now, for those that are used to what reading from left to right, it will be a problem for them. We have languages like Arabic, right, or Hebrew, which you have to read from the right hand side down to the left, right? That is their own pattern. And while designing for such languages, you have to stick to that pattern, right? But for people in the USA or here in Nigeria, right, we read English from what? From left to right. So you must make sure that what you align your text what to the left. If and you can also what align your text to the left and align the heading to the center, right? But you must make sure that what the alignment is well set, right? We have platforms like material dot design. You can check that out also, right? It helps you to explain the basic principles of design and how to use it on your website. That was designed by um, Google. And also you can check human interface design by Apple. You can check that also so that you understand how to design for all these devices, right? For both Apple and Google, I refer to as the owner of Android, right? Most times people always revert to material.io or material.design to use their design system while designing Android or for the website. That's not all for typography. When it comes to typography, right? In Figma, let me jump into my Figma. So we'll just do um, a little bit of practical before we rush down into it. Now we've talked about the theory aspect. We've gone over um, consistency. We've gone over a lot, right? Now let's just do a very, very brief practical so that I'm going to explain to you some features that you can use. Sorry, I'm using Figma, but that's my major tool. A product designer, so most time I do almost virtually everything on Figma, right? So for those that haven't used Figma before, I'm sorry, but I hope you also learn a thing or two from this. Now let's just dive right into it. Let me click on my T and I zoom in and I have a text like heading. Yeah, heading, and I also have what a body text. Let me run Lorem Ipsum plug in on Figma for those that are familiar with that, and I insert a text. Sorry, let me reduce. its size. Yeah. So we have this, right? Change this to regular, and yeah. This is your heading, and this is what your body text, right? This is the practical aspect before jumping into what's iconography. Iconography is going to be very, very brief, but if you guys are very good with your type, right, you'll be very good also what with your icon selection and the likes. So for wisdom, I don't know, wisdom, am I going too fast, or are you guys hearing me? Or we need to take a pause, we need to take water and the likes.
No, it's fine. Sir. You're good. I don't know about that. Probably someone else can just speak for themselves also.
Okay. I need to confirm because most time I talk very, very fast. So I need to confirm if you guys are following and I'm audible enough, right?
Joy is smart. You guys can say something. Okay. Someone sent a comment that it's okay, sir. So okay. I think we need to go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the practical aspect, right? And trying to want to create an awesome experience, right? So we talked about things like consistency, and we talked about different types of typefaces and difference between typeface and fonts, and we also went over a few, right? While designing, this is how I do it when I'm designing, right? You have to take three things into what you have to take note of three things, right? Your font size, your font type, and also what the different font weights that you'll be using, right? Very, very important across your design, and you must make sure they are consistent. Now, if I'm creating a website, let's say for a tech website, let's say we are designing for ourselves, or we are designing for Design Corners, or we are designing for Feminisky Dev, right? Um, and we select a font. Now, I'll be using a generic font that is like Roboto. For those that use Figma, I'm sure you know how to change fonts. You go to your design panel and you have the text section there, and you are able to what to change your font. Now, I'm going to change this also what to Roboto. I'm just going to type that in and click enter. Now we have Roboto here, and we have Roboto as the heading text, right? Now these two texts, their font size are the same. Change the font size 24. Are the same, right? But because I used a capital letter for the heading, you are able to what differentiate that this is the heading text and this is what the body text. That's one, right? You always want to make sure that you differentiate in terms of what hierarchy, and in terms of what being consistent, right? You have to differentiate which is which. You should know that for web developers, you know that your heading one is the biggest font. You have your heading two, you have heading three, down to what the heading six, right? Which is always seen as the smallest text, right? So for designers also, while designing, you have things like your heading, you have your subheading, right? And you also have what your caption, and you have your like your caption text. If you this is like the major fonts that the major styles that you're going to see when you're using a design system, right? This is like majorly what you use throughout your um website, right? You have your heading, subheading, caption, and the likes. Now, imagine you are visiting a website and the whole of those fonts are the same. How does your user know which one is your subheading? How does the user know which one is what is the caption? And how do they know which one is the body text? Because now the whole of this text, they're having the same font size, and the only ones that are having the same styles are this, which are a little bit bolded. This is Roboto bold, and this is what Roboto regular, right? You're able to differentiate between the heading, subheading, and caption from what from the body, right? But you can't differentiate the heading, subheading, and caption from themselves. I hope you get that, because what I'm using the same styling. Now, while creating a website, you have to make sure that what your website is designed in what in order, meaning that what in hierarchical what order. Very, very important. You should know that what your heading should have a bigger font, right? Let's say heading, has what, a bigger font. Now your subheading will have a smaller font that is what, that is smaller than the heading but bigger than the caption, right? Now I'm going to change this to medium and also reduce the size to 18, right? And for the caption, you know that your caption should be either smaller than your body text or it should be the same size but have different what, font weight. Now I'm going to change this to regular and also reduce the font to what, to 16. And for my text size, I'm going to take this to 14 pixels. And yeah, let's say I have this, right? This is not still good enough in terms of what, because I've not arranged it. The white space is still equal on what, every section, right? It's still looking so scattered and it's not even clustered. It can either be like this, that's, it's very wrong for you to have something like this, or you have what, something like this. These are like bad way of what, using your type. Let me just do that using the grid on Figma. Yeah, imagine you're having something like this, and these are like one, are referred to as what, are inside one container for developers, and for designers, you know that what, they are inside this one frame, or maybe they are grouped together, right? These are like a family, and these are also what, like a family, but users can't really read this even if you have worked on the sizes of the text. But it's not still readable because it's, users don't, there's no pattern here, right? Imagine I duplicate this also, and this is like the heading 2 and heading 3, right? I'm having something like this. It's not still looking as good as it should, right? Because the white space is not well set, and I'm being consistent, but the white space what, is not well set. Now, for you to have a very, very good um typography around your what, your design, you have to make sure you take cognizance of the consistency one, hierarchy 2, um contrast 3. You have to make sure that what, you take the white space into what, consideration, and also what, the size of the text. All these are very, very, very important. You can note that somewhere. Now let's fix this, right? Let's make this look better than the rest. This sample one, this will be the one that we'll be fixing. Now for the heading text, I'm going to reduce this, or I'm going to change it. For the subheading, I'm going to change it to a normal capitalized, right? As just the first letter is capitalized and other letters are what, are in lowercase. I'm going to change it to what, subheading, and I'm going to change this to what, to regular, and keep the size at this, or I reduce the size a bit, right? That's for the subheading text. Now for the caption and the body text, I'm going to work on them and reduce the caption to what, to 12. Most time, the smallest, your smallest size of font should be 14 for readability, but I'm using 12 here. You should know that what, it's not 12, except you are working on something that have small text. They are referred to as small text in design. You should know that also. Now for the caption, I'm going to also what, reduce that to 14 and maybe change this to light, right? And have this. This is like looking better than what, than the rest, because you're able to differentiate between each section, right? You're able to differentiate between your heading, subheading, caption, and the likes, right? Now let's design a good what, landing page very, very fast. Let's just go over that to make sure that what we are, because if you're able to create a landing page, it'll be easier for you to understand the usage of all this. I'm going to click on F. I hope you guys are hearing me and following along. And I'm going to input a desktop that has 1440 by 1024. I'm going to add my layout grid. That's a column grid, very, very fast. And also going to change it to 12 and change this to, let's say, 135, or let's know this is 140, just for practical purpose. Reduce this to black and change this to 7, right? Now, while creating a website, you understand that what you have, your nav bar, you also have what, the hero section, right? And this is just a landing page. Now, I'm going to use this text. for to explain all this, let me zoom in so you guys can see a rectangle. Let's say we are having something like this here, and we have this here, or maybe aligned to that place. And we are trying to create a simple landing page that has a good type, right? We've selected our type. That is what Roboto, and the fonts weights type that we'll be using is Roboto Bold, Roboto Medium, and Roboto what regular. That's what we'll be using throughout. And maybe we might use the light just for you to what to understand the usage of all these fonts, because you understand them when we are doing the practicals. That's what I believe. Now I'm going to change this to design corners, bring people to, I don't know what to write. I don't have a good copy for that. Let me just leave that at that. I don't know if design corners do that. Please don't don't mind my copy, but I just need to do something. Uh, Now I have this as my main copy, right? This is like the biggest fonts I'm going to have, and I have these words as my description, right? The description font is this, and I'll be needing a button, right? Now, all these are elements of what of your design that are very, very what important, right? I'll be having a button. I'll just name that button button, and yeah, Shift A, added auto layout, and also what add a few of, let's say, red color, and change this to white. Now this is my button. That's the call to action button, right? I'm trying to explain what typography. Now imagine you bump into a website and you have this way. This is how it's looking. You should know that what this is very, very bad, right? It's not awesome at all, because in terms of typography, the button text is so big, and it's bigger than what than the main copy, right? That's like your main text that's going to tell people what you do, right? Is bigger than that. So you should take cognizance of all this while creating your website, or while designing your website, right? As designers or as developers, you have to take this into consideration. And in terms of white space, this is bad, and this is looking so bad. I won't stay 1 second on a website that has a design like this. Now let's pick this very, very fast. We have this. This is the major font. We have image here, right? And what I will do is that I'm going to increase this font size and reduce the width, right, and the container. And I'm going to increase, shift this to the closer to it. And now we have things like what white spaces, right? How do you add white spaces in Figma? White space are referred to as what? As your line height. For those that understand, is referred to as what? As your line height. In Photoshop or Illustrator, is referred to as what? As your tracking. And yeah, line height, tracking, or is referred to as what? As your white space. That's the space between each what? Each section of what? Of your text. That's each line. Now, this is, if I want to increase the line height, you guys take note of that. I'm trying to go over a lot with the few time that we have. That's why I'm a little bit rushing. In Figma, you can just increase the line height. What I do most times in design, or while I'm creating a website, I make sure that what my line height is set to what 1.6 or 160%, right? So if I have a default text, or the text size is around let's say 12 pixels, right? The line height will be 1.6 bigger than what? Than the 12. Now it's going to be like a 1.6 times what? By times 12. Very, very important for you to note that down. So I'm going to change this to what? To 160% in Figma. If you are designing on your website while using your CSS, right? You set that the line height to what? 1.6 generally, and you have this set. Now for the copy, that's for the description text, is not readable enough. You have to also what? Work on the tracking, or work on what? On the line height. I'm going to change this also to what? To 160%. And I have this. Now this is readable for every user. I'm going to increase the text size to, let's say, 16. And for my button, the button is too big, right? What I'll do, I'll reduce the button just by reducing the size. I'm going to make sure that the button size is around 18 pixels and have this that way, or I can make it to be 24 pixels, right? Now you should know that what everything is in section, right? Everyone has to carry a unique styling, right? To give you a very, very good aesthetics, right? It must be visually what appealing. So you use type for all this. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible so you guys will understand. And for the size of this, let's just do that normally. Yeah, right? You have this now. Removing this, can you see that this? Can you see how neat this is, right? Like this is very, very neat just by adding what line height and also what adding either line height or tracking and making use of good white spaces, right? Now there's another functionality or another styling effect that we have, which is referred to as what as skinning for those that use Photoshop or Illustrator. But in Figma, it's called letter spacing, right? I guess in website design too, is also called what letter spacing. Now, letter spacing is what is the space between what each letters. How do you increase that in Figma? I can just drag this. I have this section here. Can you see? Can you see that just by increasing the letter spacing, I've messed up the whole of this design and it's not looking very, very nice as it should, right? So you have to take cognizance of all this. This is very, very bad. And users, imagine you are using this all through as your header text. It won't be awesome because the space are too much. So your white space must not be too much and it must not be too small. Remember that use as designers, there's no right way to do this. There's no right way to do that, right? You have to just make sure that you are using your eyes to really try to gauge the white space, the amount you need, and the likes, right? There's no really right way that you have to use this particular value or you have to do this. But as designers, an advice to everyone, right? Make sure you get acquainted to viewing websites every day. For developers, you can go on awards, right? That's award.com. You go over there and you visit a lot of websites, the other platforms, right? And for designers, you have things like Dribble, you have Behance, you have Screenlane, and the likes, right? You have so make sure that once you visit websites every day, try to notice how they do things, right? How their typography is. Use don't just chat on your WhatsApp, right? Try to notice how WhatsApp is so consistent on every section, on the status bar, the WhatsApp text, and when you are chatting also, right? When you bold the text, you lay emphasis on that, right? Try to notice all these. There's not really any magic to it, right? It just depends on you and how well you've gotten acquainted with what visiting and viewing a lot of websites, right? Because once you start doing that as a designer, right, your psychology is going to change because once you see a text that is not well aligned or that is not that has too much white space, you will know because you have been viewing a lot of good websites. Don't go and be viewing websites that are like back in the days, right? Make sure you get acquainted with good stuff. It's very, very important as designers. Make sure that you try your best to look at websites that people visit daily. Things like Google, Wikipedia, and Facebook, and the likes, right? When it comes to app, you use your WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok now, right? Notice their typography, right? Notice how they use their type, right? Notice how they use the font size and lay emphasis on some uh copyright that's using like the font weight, right? Notice how they do that. Very, very important. And the last one I'll be going over is called leading, right? Which is referred to as what as the space between what between each words. In Figma doesn't have that. You can't really um you can't edit the text. That's to give your text different space between each word, but Figma has already, that's why you have to make use of a good font that's like Roboto, Montserrat, and the likes, right? Because they have a predefined type of what space between each word. Very, very important, and you guys should know that. So let's fix this back. Just using white space. Can you see that we know that white space is very, very important, but if you overdo it, it messes up your design. If you don't do it, your design is not okay. So you have to just get it right. Use your eyes to gauge it. I'm not using a particular font size here, but I'm just using. Now I know that this is looking better, this is readable, and the likes, right? I've reduced the letter spacing, also referred to as what, as the caning. I've reduced that, and this is looking better, right? So you should just try your best, use your eye to gauge your design. Now, another important advice to everyone is, while designing for websites and as a designer or as a web developer, right? Use values that are divisible by 4 or 8. Very, very important. It makes you create um, an awesome website, in the sense that it will be very, very consistent, because now you have things like 8, you have things like 16, you have like 12 divided by 4, also you have 20, you have 24, you have 28. Can you see there are multiples of what, either 4 or 8? So you'll be able to remember all this, and you'll be able to use them. Now, if you are anyone that is used to using a lot of design system, I do that sometimes, but not every time. You notice that what their text size or font size are set to all these values. You have like 48, you have 40, and the likes, right? Now, even when it boils back to your white spaces, right? You make use of all these values, because these are the values that are going to help you to keep your design consistent. Very, very important. And you guys have to know that, right? I guess we are taking a lot of our time. We have just 1 minute to 7, and we haven't gone over iconography. Wisdom.
Please, sir, feel free. Continue. Continue. Continue.
Okay, I have to confirm if everyone is comfortable with that. I'm just trying to give a lot of tips. This is not like a basic class, because 1 hour is not enough to really explain how to use your type well, right? But we have to just use the time that's allocated to us. Very, very important, and try our best to learn a thing or two. I hope you guys have gotten a lot, and also what understood typography, right? What it is. We have three different type of typefaces. We have sans serif. Where sans serif is used, it's always, most times I use sans serif when I'm creating maybe a church website, or designing a church flyer. Sometimes I design on Figma, right? The likes, right? Use those type of fonts. But when you are, most times, right? Another advice to everyone, right? And another tip is that, for readability purpose on digital products, right? Like on websites, on apps, make sure that your body text is a sans serif font. Your body text is always what? A sans serif font. Now, don't use a script font. Let me just do this. Let's change this to a script font, like style. I have style script. Um, Now, we have, I've changed this, right, to a particular font, right? And you see that without me zooming in, you can't even read the Lorem Ipsum, meaning that what, this typography is bad, very, very bad. But by using a sans serif font, a good sans serif font at that, don't use something like Comic Sans. I don't, everyone, that font has a very, very bad history. Don't know why. So don't use what, a script font for your body text. Take note of this. When you are designing, or when you are creating a good website, right? Most time I don't make use of a script font. I see script font as a font that is majorly for prints, right? That's when creating a flyer, and you want to just have a design that is sleek, right? And maybe a playful design and the likes, use script fonts. But while designing what, a website, you should know that you are designing for users, for a lot of people, not just yourself, right? This is something that people view on their phone, they view on bigger screens, and some persons even view it on, let's say, a Nokia 3310, right? Or any smaller device that can view a website. Some persons do that, right? So, and if your font is not okay and is not readable enough, they won't visit your website, and you will not have a lot of traffic on that website. And the sole purpose of that website is gone. So you have to make sure that what, your body text most time should be um have what, that's for the button. The text should also what, be a sans serif, because these are things users will want to see. And most times, body text are majorly they have little font size, right? Their font size are small. Maybe you have like 16 for mobile. You can have something like 14 pixels. For desktop, you might have up to 18 pixels, and it must not be too big and it must not be too small, right? You might have like 18 pixels, or you might use 16 pixels, right? Depending on type of font. And your make sure that what your body text always set as what as regular, at regular, that the font weight should be regular, because so that users will be able to view it well. Some persons have some settings that they've tweaked the settings on their phone, they've tweaked the settings on their browser, and it's going to affect all this text, right? So if you're not using a font that is very, very good, it won't be readable. And while defining what typography is, he said it's an act of what making your copy what clear, legible, and what visually appealing. And for users to know that this is visually appealing, right? They must love the website. And how do they do that? Because they're able to read all what is there. If you guys visit Apple, or you have an iPhone, or let's say an Android, right? You visit, just look at the way they structure their type, right? Look at the way Apple make use of what consistency on their website. You can check apple.com, check that out and see how it is done. Very, very important for you guys as designers and web developers, right? What makes it good is when you visit different websites every day, or use different apps every day, like different ones, right? It helps you, because there's things that going to user experience design now, right? We talk about the psychology of users, right? There's something about users are used to a particular pattern, right? And if you're even pitching something new to them, but if the pattern is consistent, it will be easy for them to get used to. Though, like when visiting TikTok now, it's a new, when it came in, it was a new product, right? But people were still able to navigate through that, and also it was readable. When using WhatsApp came into play, right? When Mark Zuckerberg bought it, and we could still use that platform, right? Now we're talking about typography, not the layout and the likes, right? You can still view that, and most time all these platforms make use of what sans serif fonts. My brand font is a sans serif font, and most time when designing digital products, I use what sans serif fonts. And if I'm even to use a serif font, that's the one that has a stroke at the edge. What I will do, right? Let's change this now to Helvetica. Let me use Georgia or Garamond. Let me use Garamond. And for serif font, can you see that the space between each text is too much? So I have to like really adjust that. And let's say I keep it at this. This is okay, right? I change this to, let's say, Montserrat. Montserrat, almost you can pair it with almost every font out there. Now I'm using two type of fonts, right? Montserrat. Let me work on this to make sure that it's better. Yeah, it should be something like this, right? Right space should be okay. Now I'm using two types of fonts, right? Two types of typeface, serif and what sans serif. Now, majorly, don't use a serif font or a script font for your body text, right? Your body text is the text that defines who you are, or that tells people about your brand. That's the text that you want people to view more, right? Maybe after you have a header text, but you should make sure that what your body text are always what well readable, because now the font size, I mentioned that the font size to be very, very small, so it must be readable and very, very clear to the viewers. If a viewer is not able to read, or a user is not able to read the copies on your website, or the textual content on your website, it will be hard for them to understand what the website's all about. And within 2 minutes, they are out and they are gone, right? And the next thing they have to do search online is to search online for other words and websites that serve the same purpose. Do you guys get that? Wisdom. I still I'm speaking to myself. Google Meet can be funny sometimes.
Yes, we are with you.
Okay, cool. Let me just run down to iconography, right? Iconography is very, very simple and slick. Let's leave typography alone. I'm sure that I've given a lot of tips to you guys to make your type better. And yeah. Now, what is iconography, right? Iconography is one of the most crucial parts of the user interface, right? Now looking at the UI, and it's a virtual language that represents commands, content, and reveals the meaning behind what functionality. Your icons should always represent simple visual metaphors that users can understand and recognize instantly. Um, I'm going to be using a very, very simple type of what icon that is referred to as what as the heart icon, right? Everyone uh talks about love. Some persons don't do that, but we know the heart icon, right? That represents what love. It's an icon, right? So anywhere you go or on different types of icon sets, right? There's consistency on what on the icon, and while using an icon, right, you must make sure that what it is consistent one, and it is what clear and as simple as possible. Some persons use some fonts that you get on, let's say, flat icons, right? That's a website that has a lot of icons, and some icons are not even, you don't even know the meaning, right? But users have interacted with a lot of platforms, so on your website also they want to see similar icons, right? Let me see if I should have my icon pack here. Yeah. Now for those that use Figma, right, you have Figma supports plugin. Figma supports plugin, right? So you have two major. The best plugin I use, right, most time is Iconify. Iconify is a plugin on Figma, so we're going to use that to it has different libraries of what icon sets, different icon sets, and I'm also going to tell you guys a few. Let me just run that. So we'll go over icon and we'll be done for this session. Iconify. Sorry, let it just load. I don't know if my screen is visible. You should be able to see that. um show make this smaller, yeah. So this Iconify, right, now it has different libraries. As you can see, you can select maybe font awesome, you can select emoji, you can select several ones, right? Now let's just, this is my last search for sound. Let's say heart icon. Now, can you see that these are different heart icons that are gotten from different icon sets, but they are consistent because they still have that heart in them, right? They have the love shape in them, right? So while creating icons, you must make sure that you use icons that are familiar to your users. Imagine I'm using a heart icon. Let me import this, import as components. I always do that. Let me zoom, let me increase the size of the icon. Yeah. Imagine I'm using this icon, right, as a navigation icon. What are navigation icons? They help you to what navigate throughout the website. You have the back, you have the chevron right, chevron left, for those that have used icon before now. So imagine you're having that and it's not working fine, right? It's not even looking good at all because you are using an heart icon. Anywhere someone sees an heart icon, it's either they want to what like, or they want to what just like something, right? It stands for what love. Maybe you want to like a post on Instagram, you want to like a post or on TikTok, and you want to like maybe a post on LinkedIn, right? Use the heart icon. So you must understand where to use some basic icons, right? And how to use them. Make sure your icon is what is consistent. As a designer, as a web developer, most time what I do, I have my own what icon set, which I use most time. I just have icon sets. There are some that I have to redesign and make sure that they have my own feel, right? But most time I make use of what icon sets because it's easier. A lot of designers have gone over that and they've designed it for you. You as a designer is just what pick it. Figma has an awesome community. There are a lot of websites out there. We'll be going over there that has good icons. Now, while using your icons in terms of size, let's go over size. Let me Control X and I paste this inside this. Now imagine I'm having this as the icon for this button. That's in terms of the size. All content, right? I'm having this as the button. As you can see, in terms of the proportion, it is messed up because the icon is too big, right? Even if, let's say, it serves its purpose, right? I'm using the right icon, which what is supposed to be there is in navigation icon, right? Because that's like call to action. You are telling the user that either you click to go to a next page or you click just to go somewhere, right? That's what the call to action button should do. Now I'm using this size of the heart icon, and it's supposed to serve the purpose of what? Of a navigation. Now, this is entirely what's wrong, because once a user clicks on this, either the field the user wants to have is either I want to like something, or I want to like a post, I want to do something, right? Imagine you click on this and it now links to another page, right? The user will be so, why is this person, why can't you just use the normal navigation icon and make use of that, right? So you have to take cognizance of all this. And in terms of naming icons, the icons are, when you are using an icon set, it's easy for you to know them because they use similar words that you use in your day-to-day life. Like the heart icon is called the heart icon. Let me run iconify again. And yeah, and let's say we want to search for navigation. Now navigation deals with what? Arrows. If I just search arrows and I search it, now look at, I have a lot of arrows here. Can you see? I have a lot of arrows that I can use. If I said I'm looking for arrow right, can you see I have a lot of arrow right icons? I can select from a few. So all the naming conventions are so simple for you. So that's one of the basic usage of what? Using what? Icon set. And your icon must signify its purpose. It must serve its purpose. That's one of the definition here. You say that what? Your icon should always represent simple visual metaphors. Don't use a heart icon where you're supposed to use to serve the purpose of navigating. Don't use a navigation icon when you are looking for something like to bookmark a website. Don't use that. When it comes to what? Settings, if we search settings icon, we'll see something like an engineering um, field. If we search settings, can you see we have that? Because most times engineering is all about what? Fixing things, and settings is all about changing a particular feature on your website or on the web app, right? So let's say we want to look for an icon that serve the purpose of an activity, right? Let's say an activity icon. You just search the meta for activity, and Iconify is going to give you quite a lot. Can you see? Activity icon one. You also have, there are different types of activity icon, but all these, the icons what serve their purpose. This is like serving as if those that are used to things in the hospital, right? Or you are used to charts, right? You notice that what in the hospital, the when checking your heartbeat, it keeps on what moving and the likes, right? If you are playing music also, it keeps on what? Moving, it doesn't stop. Now, these are things that designers have sat down to think about what icon is going to best suit this metaphor. So you should understand all this. Don't use icons that are, let's say we want to search for, let's, which language, which word can I use? Let's say English. Is there an icon for English? And you see there's a searching, it gives me a few. Now look at what Iconify gave me. It gave me en or en just to search English, but most time, or it gives me what? A letter. Can you see? Because it knows that what English is referred to what? A language that have what? Letters, or you can just use the en and the likes, right? That's when representing like USA and the likes. So you should understand all this. Use the right icon where necessary. And how do you know them? Just search for things. What do you want to do? Do you want to navigate? Do you want to like? Do you want to change your settings? Do you want to do the likes, right? Search for them and you will get them. Let's say we are looking for a car icon. Let's say we're working on a car platform, we search car, we have different kind of cars. Can you see the icon that is used for that? So those are what one of the advantage of what using what icon packs or icon sets, right? It's easier for you to use. Now in terms of development, most developers use things like what? Font awesome, right? You use material.design, right? You use material icons, is there for you and it's free. I'm sure it's paid now, right? I checked it last week. It was paid by, there's a free um, design system on Figma that you can use also. And you also have things like what? Iconly. Those are my favorites, and I also want to use UI icons and cool icons. I use a lot of icons, right? But one thing that you should know about them, right? They might have different views. That's maybe some are having rounded corners, some are having sharp corners, and some are having different kind of view, right? But you cannot search for a navigation icon and see it looking like a heart icon or see it looking like an activity icon and the like. It must serve what its purpose. So while selecting icons, try your best to make sure that it serves its purpose. Very, very important. I hope you guys get that. The next thing that we'll be going over is type of icons, right? Type of icons. We have things like regular, we have bold, and also we have different types, right? Depending on, I'm sorry, yeah, depending on what you want to use. When you hover on some icons, you notice that what it's either it is filled, that's like it is bolded, or it is filled with a color and the likes, right? Let me explain that very, very fast using this icon. You should know as a designer, this should carry, it should be around 24 pixels. Most time 24 pixels for this. Let me just reduce it this way. uh I mean, this is a stroke, right? This is a stroke type of icon because this is the stroke around. Now if you are talking about a few icon, let me duplicate this so that you understand. A few icon, Figma should help me to do this. Yeah, I can just go inside that and add this. I'm done. And change this to, let's say, white. Change this to white too, right? Can you see that I have two types of icon already, right? This is stroke and this is what fill. Now, most times, if you are all these principles of designs, right? It's everywhere, right? You have to make sure you use it, even when you're having a good typography, when you're having a good iconography and the likes, right? You have to make use of the principles of design, right? Consistency is key. If you are using a solid icon or a filled icon, you use it all through your design, right? If you are using an icon from, let's say, Font Awesome, use Font Awesome icon all through. If you are using an icon from let's say I have another plugin for Figma users. You have your that should be your Iconify, yeah, feather icons, right? That's another plugin you can install. You have feather icon. If you're using an icon from feather icons, right? You use every icon that will reflect on your website to make sure that what it's from feather icons. I hope you guys get this. I'm trying to go over a lot with the few time that we have and go very, very fast. It's almost night, right? Or it's night already. So you should make sure that what when you are using a solid icon, use a solid icon all through. If you are using a solid icon for the purpose of the hover state or when a user click on the stroke, right, let it serve its purpose. When you are having another icon that is looking that is from that icon pack, right, you should, when you are hovering on that one too, it should have the same feel. It must be consistent. Now in terms of sizing also, right, make sure that what your icons are what are giving a good size, right? And we've gone over sizing in typography, whereby you use things like the 8pt rule, right? Always divisible by 8. Now my icon, I changed it to 24, and can you see that this font size is 24, and I'm using the font, the icon is what is also what 24 pixels, right? And it's looking so good. If I change this font size to, let's say, 46, right? It's still looking okay, but it's not really serving the purpose. It's like the font is what is bigger than the icon, right? So I have to also increase this in that's in relative proportion to what to the font. Very, very important. You guys have to take note of this, right? Just um always what interact with. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so try your best to what to interact with a lot of websites and go over a lot. Sorry this took a lot of your time. Iconography and typography is not something that we can really talk about, but this I'm sure a lot of persons or you guys learned a team. I hope you learned a team of you, right? So we'll be stopping here because our time is fast spent. And thanks very much for having me, and I remain Femoski Dev.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. So, guys, Can we just take about one or two questions if anybody have? Let's not make it rowdy. Just send a message first, then the floor will be yours. So any question, please. Let's just take one or two questions before we call it a day today. No question.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, evening. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of joined late because I just go back from work and I kind of joined late. Is it possible maybe we can get this slide or I don't know? Is it possible we can get the slide or the link to this Figma file?
Yes, 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 yes. I'll make that available for everyone on the group chat.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So any other question from anybody? Is
Yes,
there somebody is asking, is there a way to download an icon pack or something?
on Figma, right?
Icon pack.
That's for Figma
Yeah.
users. Yeah, yeah. There's a way to download icon pack on Figma. Is my screen still visible to you guys? Let me just show you how to do that very fast.
Yes, it is.
It's visible,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, you click on your home
Yes.
button. I'm using the Figma um, for desktop, but if you are using on your browser, you can just go back and click on what the menu, that's the home. So I click on this, I'm on my main Figma UI, right? This is the landing page of Figma. So what you do, right? If you want to get a icon pack, Figma has a community. You click on this explore community. It loads. This is where you get a lot of design systems. You have plugins, widgets, Figma, FigJam, different files, right? Now you have icons here. You click on icons, and here we go. You have a lot of icons. I mentioned uni icons, right? This is the whole system for uni icons. You have a lot here, different types of icons. My favorite is Iconly. If I search Iconly, I use that a lot. So you can search for, this is the major Iconly. That's this first one here. So what you do after searching it, you click on it and you duplicate. Now, if I duplicate this, I click on duplicate, let's allow it load. It creates a new Figma file for you with those icons now. Can you see? This is the whole icon list set. This is like the main homepage. Now, what you do, you go to icon library, iconly library. That's another page on the Figma file. Now you have, can you see, you have different types of what that font. You have bold, you have bulk, you have light, you have light outlined, and others, right? You also have it in different colors, but they are in while designing, and that tip you should know, right? While designing on your website, always use SVG, that scalable vector graphics format, right? While designing and while using an icon or let's say a logo, right? Always import it in that format. Why? Because scalable vector graphics, right, are vector files and they have um a minimal amount of size, right? In terms of the size, most time they're around 14 kilobytes, 23 kilobytes as the likes, right? So if you use that for your icons, not using PNG files now for icons, right? Always use SVG. And Figma system, that's on the community, all the icons you get there, right, are vector icons because they were designed on Figma. Now, Figma is a vector tool, right? So you should also always know that. Why design for websites? Don't use PNG for your logos and also what your icons. Thank you. I hope you guys have learned how to also what add an icon. So you can easily just copy this. I can copy this, Control C, and click on my project file, and I paste it here, and I have it already. So I can just copy and paste. Very, very simple. And that's all. Yeah, thanks for that question, Abdul.
Thank you very much, sir. So I think we'll call it a day here. Uh, more persons are still coming in. More persons are still joining the call. That's nice, but we're already 30 minutes behind the expected time we're supposed to close. So thanks, guys. Thanks for calling. Femoski Dev, thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate this. Not we all learned this. Let's just go out there and do crazy designs using typography, the right with typography and iconography. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate, and Victor and Wisdom, well done. And thanks to everyone that's been in this session. You guys are amazing. And last thing I'll say to you guys is um you always have to what? Develop yourself, and also adding a piece every day is all that matters, right? Always make sure you learn something new every day when it comes to design. Visit websites for designers. You use platforms like Dribble, go to Behance. To be good, you have to what? Duplicate other people's design, right? Recreate them. Try your best to recreate exactly. And with time, you start understanding the design system and how they use their font, how they use their icon size and the likes, right? Um, that's all from my own end. Thank you and God bless you.
All right, so thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.